All right. I love this church. Who knew coming to church could be so much fun? Meeting people that we might not ever have a chance to get to know, and hearing our little children singing and our big children singing and our adults singing. It's just wonderful. It is lovely, and it's beautiful to just look out and see everybody here. I'm going to need you to help me to finish these sentences, these first few. Mary had a little lamb. All right. Its fleece was good. And everywhere that Mary went, the lamb was. I followed her to school one day. It followed her to school one day. That was my fault. Which was against the rules. It made the children to see a lamb at school. All right, nice. Now, the person who wrote that song is a woman named Sarah Josepha Hale, and she was a Unitarian. She wasn't a member of this church, because she lived a long time ago before we had this church. But the reason I mention her today is that she's also the woman who convinced the President of the United States at the time to start the national holiday of Thanksgiving. Now, does anyone know which president originally started Thanksgiving? Who? Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln. That's right. She told President Lincoln, nice job, that she believed that it would be a way to help unify a divided nation. In the Pledge of Allegiance, we say, I want you to help me finish this too. One nation under God, indivisible. But the nation was divided. It was divided, and the division was not just over slavery, which had just ended, but it was also very much about immigration. As Reconstruction began, factories were springing up across the country, and the railroad started to connect east and west, and the U.S. economy was growing, and the fuel for this industry were immigrants, who are people who move here from other countries. Now, according to the history of that time, there was a huge increase in immigration. 500,000 immigrants were coming each year from a lot of different countries. And with these changes, the nation was becoming diverse and also spread apart. And a lot of people were wondering and worrying if the nation can really grow and become that diverse and still have a sense of common identity and unity. But Miss Hale saw food and as a way of coming together, and the dinner table as a place where different people could come across their differences here in America and get to know each other. So she wrote to the president, the influx of foreigners into our country is prodigious, which means there was a lot. To bind together the discordant nationalities into one American family, we can begin a universal holiday called Thanksgiving. Let everyone who claims the name American, wherever he or she may be, unite to commemorate the day. It will be stronger than any laws or armies to make this nation one. Now, she wrote that to President Lincoln many years ago, but the project of making this nation one and helping people feel included and valued has been a long journey for this country, and it's a journey that's not over yet. It's a journey outlined in the preamble of the Constitution that states that we do what we do in order to form a more perfect union. This nation is based on the premise that we are always working to create a more perfect union. So as Thanksgiving approaches, we see once again the tensions and prejudices against immigrants emerging and beginning to divide our country once again. Now, here's something that most people don't think about. A lot of the food on our Thanksgiving table in years past and in this year was grown and harvested by undocumented immigrants. And that's why we have these foods and why we can afford them. Now, in the words of Arturo Rodriguez, president of the United Farm Workers Union, let's not ignore the inconvenient truth that America's food will continue to come to our tables through the toil and exploitation of undocumented farm workers who do the work that no one else is doing. As we approach this holiday that is based on the idea of gratitude, he said, it's time to give thanks to our Thanksgiving workers by simply extending to them meaningful action that says, if you harvest our food, you're welcome at the table. If you harvest America's food, you are welcome at America's table. So to that end, our Unidos group here at All Souls that is working for just immigration reform and has been for a number of years have drafted a letter to the President of the United States, much like Sarah Hale did to President Lincoln. And they will also send copies of this letter to the entire Oklahoma delegation to Washington, D.C. Today after the service, you have the opportunity, if you'd like to sign this letter. Support it if you'd like, if you agree with it. And it's one way that you can tangibly say thank you to these immigrants who are doing so much that we benefit from, that you benefit from. It's one small, but it is a significant step in helping these families and helping create a sense of an American family. So I'm going to read a little bit of this letter to conclude my remarks. And you can decide whether it's something that you're willing to sign on to. We're a diverse congregation, and we may have diverse opinions on this matter as well. They've written, "Dear Mr. President, we write to commend your recent executive action in temporarily shielding millions of parents of U.S. citizens and legal resident children and other long-term residents of our communities from the threat of deportation. You have affirmed the most basic of American values, the importance of family. Your actions will keep families together and give them a way to improve their lives. It's imperative that Congress take action to provide real opportunities for individuals who have come to this country in search of a better life for themselves and their families to come out of the shadows and become full members of our communities. We bring both head and heart to this request. We've studied the economic benefits of immigration reform. Like many business leaders, education leaders, religious and political leaders across the political spectrum, we understand that these reforms are in the best interest of every family as well as the nation as a whole. So we've also come to know undocumented immigrants as our friends and neighbors and fellow church members, and we understand how with legal immigration status, these friends and neighbors of ours would be freed from the daily fears and worries of life in the shadows. They would no longer be at the mercy of unscrupulous employers and would receive fair compensation for their work. In addition, they would no longer live in fear of isolation and would be able to become full members of our communities with their talent and contributions appreciated and respected. Signed, All Souls Unidos of All Souls Unitarian Church in Tulsa." If you agree with these sentiments, you can add your name to the letter as well. It's important to show support for those who have no voice in our system but live within our country. And at the very least, I hope that you will lift up in prayers and thanks the many people and their families who help to plant and to harvest, and in some cases prepare and serve the food this Thanksgiving. Thank you very much.